for God's sake, don't say anything or I'll swing too. Basically saying, if you talk, I'ma talk, and we can't be talking, so just be quiet. Hey y'all, welcome and or welcome back to my channel. My name is Janae, if you didn't know, and today's video is another true crime episode, so if you're ready, let's go. Alright y'all, so today we're just going to be jumping right into the case, and today we are in Alaska with a young man named William Michael Christian. Now, William Michael Christian, who also goes by Mike, was born on March 6, 1949, and in the fall of 1966, he would be starting his senior year at East High School in Anchorage, Alaska. And although this was the school that he preferred over its alternative, West High School, he was not zoned for this school. So what ended up happening was that he went to East High School. He started out his senior year there, and he was really into it. He was feeling the vibe. He liked the people, the atmosphere, everything about East High School was everything that he wanted. However, once the school district realized that his address didn't coincide with him going to East High School, the school district transferred him over to West High School. And once he got here, even though it wasn't where he wanted to go, he didn't feel completely alone, because not only had he been transferred from East High School, but also a young lady named Judy had also been transferred from East to West. And I guess the two of them kind of bonded over this transfer, which I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't have been the only two who was transferred. Maybe, maybe not. I really don't know. But whatever the case was, Mike and Judy started dating. But there was kind of a problem when the two of them started dating, because I don't know if Mike knew it or not, but Judy had a boyfriend back at East High School whose name was Roger Patty. So like I said, Roger and Judy was dating back at East, but it's unclear if they broke up before she went to West or if they were still together when her and Mike got together. But nonetheless, when Roger found out about Mike, he was not happy with it. He was actually enraged. And as you can imagine, a rivalry soon followed between Roger and Mike. Now, this is nothing new. We all know somebody or have been that somebody who's been in a back and forth with another girl, another boy, somebody who liked the person you like, somebody who dated the person you dated or want to date. You know what I'm saying? So nothing new. It's just frivolous teenage banter, right? And that's pretty much what was going on between Mike and Roger, until one day Mike went missing. So it's November 3rd, 1966, and it's pretty much a typical day. Mike leave the house, go do his teenager thing, and then he runs a couple errands before he heads over to the Sundowner Drive-In movie theater, which, by the way, not very comfortable with the name Sundowner movie theaters. Like, I feel like that's not a safe place for us to go after dark. You know, I wonder, does it still exist in Alaska? If y'all live in Alaska, in Anchorage, do y'all still got the Sundowner drive-in movie? Because I know we still got at least one drive-in movie here where I stay. So this could possibly still be in existence, but I just want to know. But anyways, as Mike is leaving the movie theater, he stops to call Judy. And I'm assuming that he called her on a payphone because, one, I know for a fact that cell phones didn't exist. But I'm not 100% sure if payphones were a thing in 1966, or if he just like stopped by the concession stand and asked to use their phone. I don't know. But some way, somehow, he got in contact with Judy, and he pretty much told her that his plans for the rest of the day was to go to a car club meeting, and then he was going to head home. However, he never ended up making it to the car meeting, and he didn't make it home that night either. And even though he didn't go home that night, his parents didn't really make too much of a fuss about it, because they figured he was a teenager, he's a senior in high school, he has his own car, he probably just spent the night at one of his friend's house, he could be with Judy. They just didn't make too big of a fuss about it until the next day when his 1963 Chevy Impala was found abandoned. Now this car was his baby. This car was his prized possession. He would never just abandon this car. So once his car was found, his parents began to panic because, like I said, he's not leaving this car for nobody. And that's when they called the police and reported him missing. Now, in the beginning, a full-blown search and investigation was launched. There was a full task force dedicated to finding Mike, and his parents even offered a $500 reward for any information regarding his whereabouts. And I know $500 don't sound like a lot right now, but this is back in 1966. That's like $4,000 or $5,000 now, maybe, I think. Oh shit, that scared me. So with that, they were hoping that they would get some tips, they would get some leads, they would get anything that could lead them to the whereabouts of their son. And it actually seemed like that was working, because there was a lot of tips that came in. Some people said that they saw him in the lower 48. There were some people that said he could he was hiding out in Mexico. There was people that said they saw him somewhere in Alaska, a little bit of everywhere pretty much. And the police followed every single lead, but unfortunately all of them were dead leads. And after about 3 months of following dead leads, the police suggested to Mike's parents that they retract the $500 reward. And so they did. And unfortunately, after the reward was redacted, the police classified Mike as a runaway and they stopped the investigation. And from there, the case went cold. Up until about 8 years later in 1974, when a man in Spokane, Washington applied for a job at the police station. So this man's name was James Etheridge. And like I said, he had applied to, I don't know if it was to be a police officer or just to work at the police station, but he applied to work for the police. And during the interview process, there's a routine polygraph portion of the interview, which I wonder, is that still a thing? Like, do y'all still get polygraphed to be like in the police force? Is that a thing? I don't know. Anyway, so he's hooked up to this polygraph machine, and one of the questions is, do you know of any unsolved felonies? And James said, as a matter of fact, I do. And so obviously this intrigued the officer, and he told James to tell him more. And James proceeded to tell him that he knew of a kid named Mike who had disappeared about 8 years ago, who he knew for a fact had not only disappeared, but was murdered. And so the officer wants him to tell him even more now. So the officer asked James to tell him the whole story, and it went as follows. James said that on November 3rd, 1966, Mike and Roger had met up with each other on Sand Lake Road. Now, whether this was on purpose and they had planned to meet up or they had just ran across each other, I'm not sure. But one way or another, the two of them ended up on Sand Lake Road, where Roger proceeded to tell Mike to stay away from his girl. And Mike wasn't about to back down to Roger because no. And so Mike started going off on Roger. And as Mike was pretty much cussing Roger out, Roger reached into his car and grabbed a .22 pistol. And once Mike saw that Roger had a pistol, he tried to wrestle it away from him. But unfortunately, Roger got the upper hand and ended up shooting Mike. And once Mike was shot, he kind of stumbled backwards onto the window of his car. And that is when Roger proceeded to shoot him one more time before placing Mike's body in the trunk of his car. Now, according to James, the reason that Roger had this .22 pistol was because he borrowed it from a friend after he found out that Mike regularly just carried a gun on him. So after Roger put Mike's body into his trunk, he started to drive. I don't know where he was going. But during this drive, he ended up catching a flat tire. And as he was on the side of the road, one of Roger's friends named Arthur McClickian drove by and saw Roger on the side of the road. And so he stopped to help his friend with the flat tire. And once he got out of his car to help Roger, he got the shock of his life because Mike's body was in the trunk, remember? But instead of freaking out and panicking and doing what I would think most people would do, was hightail it out of there, Arthur decided that he was going to help his friend with this little problem that he had. And so what they did was they left Roger's car on the side of the road with the flat tire, but they couldn't leave Mike there because what if the police came, or what if they, what if something happened? So they ended up moving Mike from Roger's trunk to Arthur's trunk and then proceeded to head to James's house, the one who applied for the police station and is telling the story. Yeah, him. So once they got to James's house and told him what Roger had done to Mike, James wanted no parts. James said, get somebody else to do it. He said, y'all can head on out with that. And the two of them, they respected his decision and they decided to solicit other friends. But before they left James's house, Arthur told him, for God's sake, don't say anything or I'll swing too. Basically saying, if you talk, I'm going to talk, and we can't be talking, so just be quiet. And so with that, they left James and headed to solicit somebody else. And this is how they ended up with Ken Wise and Roman Lenz. Now, I don't know who house they went to, Ken's or Roman's, but nonetheless, wherever they went, Ken and Roman was there with one of their girlfriends. And unlike James, Ken, Roman, and the girl, they was down for whatever. So now what they ended up doing was moving Mike's body from Arthur's trunk to Roman's trunk. And if y'all not keeping up, that's 3 times now that Mike's body has been moved from trunk to trunk to trunk. And that is now 6 people: James, Arthur, Ken, Roman, the girl, and Roger, who all know about this. So anyways, while the 5 of them, because remember James don't want no parts, are driving in Roman's car to get rid of Mike's body, they're actually pulled over by the police. Now, you would hope that the car is searched, Mike's body is found, and the 5 of them are hauled off to jail. But as we know, that's not what happened. This actually wasn't like a traffic violation stop. It was just a routine, I guess, check. I'm not really sure what that means. Maybe it was a checkpoint. I don't know. But nonetheless, the troopers did their little routine check and then allowed these 5 teenagers to go about their merry way. And so that's what they did. However, due to this little police interaction, Ken and the girlfriend said, let me out right now. So they got dropped off somewhere, and then Roger, Arthur, and Roman continued on about their business. And they drove for a little while until they ended up on this unnamed road at Eagle River. And it is here where Roger and Roman got out of the car and buried Mike in a shallow grave. And it is there where Mike remained while everyone else went on about their lives. Now, I'm not sure if it was the greatest lives, but they went on about their lives. So about 2 weeks after Mike's murder, Roger and Arthur would end up dropping out of high school, and they would both end up in the military. Arthur would enlist himself into the Marine Corps, while Roger was drafted into the Army a couple of years later, where he would serve in Vietnam. And then after his stay in the military, he went back to Alaska and pretty much led a normal life after that, at least for the next 8 years, until James decided to apply for the police force and got this question, and here we are now. So with this story that James just gave, the Spokane Police Department contacted the Anchorage Police Department and told them what James had just pretty much confessed to. And it was then that the Anchorage Police Department decided to unclassify Mike as a runaway and reopen his case as a murder case. So now that this case is reopened, it is all over the local news. Everybody is hearing about it for the first time again in 8 years. Mike's face is all over the news, and any radio broadcast is talking about this. And Arthur takes this opportunity to go around to each and every witness or potential witness to threaten them. But his threats really didn't mean nothing, and if anything, it kind of made him look even more guilty. Did I say that Roger went around making threats? Because that's what I meant. If I didn't say that, that's what I meant. But anyways, on May 9th, 1975, he was indicted and arrested on first-degree murder charges, but unfortunately, he would be the only one arrested in regards to the murder of Mike, because the statute of limitations on being an accomplice to murder had run out in 1971. So everybody else who helped him hide and conceal this murder, yeah, they were let off scot-free. Nothing happened to them. So Roger would end up going through 2 trials. The first one would end in a mistrial, and during the second trial, his defense kind of saw that it might not be looking too good for him. And so they offered the prosecution a deal and said that their client would plead no contest to the lesser charge of manslaughter. And for whatever reason, I'm thinking it's because at this point they hadn't found Mike's body. The prosecution decided to agree and allow him to plead no contest to manslaughter. And so that's what Roger did. And on July 21st, 1977, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. And I just don't feel like that's enough time. He's already lived these 8 years scot-free, got a Purple Heart in the military. Like he's living his life. He shouldn't, and he just shouldn't be able to keep frolic. And even though Roger would end up taking the police to the place where he said that they buried Mike, to this day, Mike's body has never been found, unfortunately. And so essentially Mike's family, they got justice, but did they really get closure at all? I don't feel like they did. And that's why I don't feel like he should be getting out of jail ever. He should have never got out of jail. Because let me tell y'all, while I was researching this case, I actually came across a couple of articles that had kept mentioning a 70-year-old Florida man who had died in a car crash. It was a single person car crash. He was going too fast around the curve, lost control of the car. He was dead on impact, and his 58-year-old female passenger was sent to the hospital in critical condition. Unfortunately, I'm not 100% sure if she made it out of that situation or if she ended up passing away from her injuries. I don't know. But the thing about it is that man's name was Roger A. Patty. And I don't know, I did some calculating because none of the articles said anything about his criminal past. So I wasn't sure if it was him or not, but I'm inclined to believe that it was him because I did some calculating. And if he was 18 in 1966, he would have been just about 70 in 2018 when this crash occurred. And I don't know how many 70-year-old Roger A. Patties there can really be. So I'm inclined to believe that he died in a fiery car crash. But I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure though. But yeah, y'all, that is all I have for today's case. Let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Do y'all think that was Roger who died in the fiery car crash, or am I tripping? But anyways, y'all, thank you so very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Now, although this was the school that he preferred, damn. Judy had a boyfriend back at West High School, no, East. And during the interview process, there's is it mandatory? And when the officer inquired further, he found out, no, James told him. One of his friends, Arthur McClellan, what's his name? And they drove for a little while until they ended up on an unnamed road at Eagle. And it is then that Roger and Arthur, was it Roger and Arthur? Yes. Oh wait, no.